Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, USA Global TV and Radio watchers and listeners. It is wonderful to be with you again today. And we are here on Talking Heads, which is, of course, a platform in which we educate and help people to grow. So, for our education and growth, what do we have for today? Well, we are looking at influence. Yes, and this is a very, very intricate thing that we can use for good or evil, depending on how it is that we use it. So we need to be aware of how we use it. And this is also within our larger conversation around leadership and leveling up our leadership, moving into that next phase, especially from an individual contributor or specialist into a leadership space. So now, understanding that we need to be aware of our influence, let's find out exactly how this influence thing actually works and what to look out for within our travels within that space. So this is lesson number 5. And yes, beware. So let's see, where have we come from so far? We got promoted. We are now a leader. Yay for us. And we have found out that there is a specific set of skills that we need to develop along the way. This, of course, is another one of those skills. We also discovered that relationships are a really, really tricky thing that might trip us up within this new space, especially if we had co-workers we worked with before. And, well, now we are possibly their boss of some sort. And then, yes, no more DIY. We are not doing it ourselves anymore. We have to utilize the team to help all of us get where it is that we want to be going. And today, presence and influence. So we have the ticket. We are on the train. We have thus far stayed on the tracks. And there has been no major incidents. I'm hoping that is still the case for you as well. And that if you maybe have a few areas where there might be incidents, to go back to some of our previous lessons and have a look how you can solve those. So for today, we are looking at influence and what is this? So the purpose of influence is to speak up for those who have no influence. And the piece about this quote from Rick that I really, really appreciate is, it's not about you. So influence is really not about us as individuals. It is about the people around us, our team, the people who we serve. So One element that I also want to maybe touch on at this point, because a lot of people, when we start speaking about influence, they think about manipulation. Now, what's the difference between manipulation and influence? The way I think about it is manipulation is when I am serving myself. I will manipulate somebody else's actions in order to serve myself. When I'm influencing, I am serving others as well as myself. So there is a broadening, a making bigger of. It is a win-win situation. So that is influence. And the emphasis is really on the others that I am serving. So it's really a service to others when I'm influencing, and that is what we want to be doing as leaders. So having that bit of a perspective shift, and moving on, of course, as I mentioned, the difference between manipulation and influence is the self-focus versus the other focus, right? So we're moving from an individual contributor or a specialist into this leadership realm. And instead of focusing on us and the one project that we have running, we are now focusing on others, our team, the larger organization, the other projects around us, and even other teams that may or may not be interacting or influenced by what it is that we do. So our perspective becomes a lot bigger than it used to be. So understanding this point, let's dive into this. And we are going to discuss 3 different elements of influence today. And the very first one is we are going to learn to read. When I'm saying learn to read, no, this is not reading books. This is a different type of reading. And the type of a reading that I'm referring to is reading the room. Now, I know for some specialists, this comes as a bit of a tricky situation. Now, first off, I want you to know that it is a skill. We can learn to read the room, the same as we learn to physically read a book, right? We were not great at reading when we started off in first grade. Some of us adapted to the whole reading thing a lot sooner, and we found it a lot easier than others. And that is the same with this. So I don't know about you, but I was, and also know, a few people that can have a bit of an awkward moment within social cues. And that's really what reading the room is about. It is understanding the cues, the signals other people are sending throughout interactions with each other, with us, with other teammates. So really understanding what is being said without words. And because as specialists, normally we have a tendency to be very cognitive. So we really dig into the facts and the figures and the data, right? So we don't always see the things that's happening with people around us and even understand what's happening with people around us. And some of it is because we don't have the language for it. Some of it is because we don't necessarily know what to look for. And if we understand what to look for and how it works, we can educate and skill ourselves up in order to read the room better. Now, for some, it is going to take a little bit longer than for others. Some people have actually developed this skill very early on, so it might feel like it comes naturally to them. In fact, they just started a lot earlier than others did, and that is the reason for that discrepancy. So how do we do this? I know I've been mentioning this as a skill and we can do this, but how do we do this? All right, so the way we do this, reading the room, first off, we need to observe. So like in a book, we need to actually understand the alphabet, how the alphabet makes words, and how the words make sentences. And then we can get into the nuances of what happens within each sentence and how to actually string a sentence together for it to make sense, and all the rest of the things that goes with that. Now, the same goes for social interactions and reading a room. So first off, we need to observe. We need to start to look for those cues that would give us signals as to what is going on with this person. What are they telling me? Maybe not only with their words, but with their body language, with their posturing, with the way that they're speaking, with the pace with which they might be speaking, with the energy level behind the words. A great book to help us to understand which cues to look for is a book called Cues by Vanessa von Edwards. And no, I am not a spokesperson. I will not get any royalties for it. It is a great book, though. I would highly recommend that you get it. If your vocabulary within the human domain and understanding body language maybe needs to be spruced up a little bit, it is a great, great resource. And of course, it will help you with your observation skills. So now that we have our observation skills sorted out, the next part of this is, yes, we know, we've seen it, we know exactly what's going on, or we have a good idea of what is going on, and then we still put our foot in it. Now, this is because we still act from our past experiences, or we might be acting out of routine. There is a behavior that is entrenched somehow. So what we need to do next is determine the behavior that would serve us. Remember, we are talking about influence here. So it needs to be a behavior that's going to be serving us and others. We want to be serving everybody within that interaction. And understanding how our behavior, what we are going to be doing, is actually going to be influencing the whole situation and what might or might not come out of that. So determining our next step, so the thing that we're going to be doing, our behavior that we are going to now put on display before we actually take action. So first off, we're just looking, observing, and then we're determining what's going to work best before we take action. Now, a caveat with this, yes, sometimes we do decide that this is the best behavior and, well, it doesn't quite work out the way we want to. And here an example would be, for instance, when you look at a little baby trying to walk. So they observe grown-ups walking, then they decide, oh, yeah, that's what I want to be doing. This is the same behavior I want to emulate. They get off their little bum, very wobbly, but successful. They are standing on 2 legs, and now they walk 2 steps, and then they fall down. So it's not that they didn't observe, they did the observation. They also got what behavior it is that they wanted to practice. The taking action wasn't so easy because the muscles didn't quite know what to do yet. Now, this might happen with us as leaders too. We observed, we know what action, what behavior we want to be putting on display, and then when we take the action, it might not go as planned. And that's okay. We are learning. We are trying things out and seeing how they feel. And please, please, please do not stop with the first try, because if that was the case, you would still be crawling around on your hands and knees. And you are not. You are walking upright. So it is going to take a few tries, and that is okay. It is part of the learning process. So now that we can read the room and have an idea of what's going on for everybody around us and how we would like to be influencing them, what other thing do we need to take into consideration? So the next thing to take into consideration is our network. And with a network, it's not any network. We want to be intentional. And this is strategic networking. Now, what the hell is strategic networking? Well, strategic networking basically consists out of 3 different things. 1, we have an open network. 2, it needs to be a diverse network. And 3, it needs to be a deep network. And having all 3 of them combined gives us a very strategic network. Now, what's an open, a diverse, and a deep network, you ask? Let me explain. So an open network, if you think about a couple of friends that you have, and all your friends has the same friends, right? That would be a closed network, because you know everybody else that the other people in your network knows. So there's no real breadth within that space. So when we talk about an open network, it's really having a network where you have a connection with somebody that has multiple connections into other networks that you do not have connections into. You might cultivate some connections in those networks, but you don't have them, right? So that's what an open network is, and we want to have our network as open as possible. Normally, for specialists, I have found that in general, we do have a tendency to have very closed, funneled networks because we talk a lot with people that is in our field, right? So other people that is like us, that is also within our space and in our field. And because we do that, we actually narrow our network quite a lot. As a leader, this does not serve us or our team. Because as a leader, we need to be able to broaden and help our team, by supporting them. And how can we support them if we only have one leg there that we can stand on? So we want to be able to support them in a variety of different ways. And for that, we need an open network. So different departments from different business units in different areas with people that knows different other people within their networks. So you see how this is really spreading out a lot. So that's an open network. Then our diverse network is, again, as a specialist, we love talking to other people that, do the same things we do. And that isn't only specialists, that's a human trait. As humans, that's normally what we love doing. Of course, I would like to speak to somebody that has the same hobbies or interests than I have, because then we have something in common. Now, I'm not saying having a diverse network where we have fundamental value differences. If that's the case, well, might not be the best person to have within your network, because you won't want to have a connection there. What we do want is people with different perspectives and different ways of looking at things. So I might, even though I'm not within marketing, I might want to get people within my network that has a marketing background, because they might just give me an idea about how to solve a problem, because they do it quite different within their space. So understanding that the people within our network also makes a big difference on the openness of the network. Then we have deep. Now, what's deep about? Deep is really about making sure that it is a true connection. So there is a relationship of sorts. We have worked together, we have shared something with each other. There is a relationship that's been built. Now, the deeper it is means we have a very tight relationship. And the more shallow our network, it means I basically know the name, where the person works, and I like some of their posts on their LinkedIn profile from time to time if I see them, and I'm not too worried to press a button, right? That would be a very top level, shallow type of network, and that's not what we are after. We are after those connections that really has relationships. And yes, we will not have deep relationships with each and every person. At least having deep enough relationships with most of them would be wonderful. So that is our strategic network. And then the last one is, impressions last. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there is that saying about first impressions. And it is not only the first impressions, but it is also the subsequent impressions. Because remember, what happens with us is when we have that very first interaction with the person, we might form an idea about them. In subsequent interactions, we confirm or deny the idea that we have about the person. So what happens is that we can make the bad idea that someone has about us stick more readily, or we can actually improve the idea that they have about us and how we operate. Now, how does this work? Well, it's really about how we show up. And as leaders, because we want to support others and we really have the other people's best interest in mind, whether this is our team or stakeholders that we are working with, or even people without any gains to what we are doing in that space, it is really about how we have our relationships with those different stakeholders. And having it authentically definitely gives us a big tick, right? I don't know about you guys, but if ever you have met somebody where you sort of go, yeah, this feels yuck, or maybe a little bit slimy, it might be because they weren't coming across as authentic. The next thing is also to create some understanding, so mutual understanding. Us really understanding what it is that they are bringing to the table, and then giving them an opportunity to understand what we are bringing to the table. So creating that mutual understanding. How do we do this? Through, One is deep listening. So really listening when somebody else talks. Yes, and keeping quiet once they answered, because you never know what they will say again. And this brings us to our good questions. So if we ask questions and we just listen deeply, hey, we're already on our way to create understanding. And that helps them to be feeling supported. So that is one of our other points, is supporting others and having a service mindset. So really thinking about how I can serve the people or person that is right in front of me right now. As a leader, that is always a good mindset to cultivate. And then, of course, if you have missed it, radical candor. Yes, we want to make sure as leaders that we not only support in a loving, caring way, but also make sure that everybody stays within the boundaries that we have set so that we are going in the right direction. And some radical candor might be required during feedback. If you are not sure what this radical candor thing is that I'm talking about, go and have a look at lesson number 4. We touched on it there, and we also have a deeper dive within the radical candor space in some of our other lessons. And that is basically the 3 things that you need for you to be able to ensure that the influence that you have is really serving, not only you, others. Because as a leader, that is our focus. We lead others so they become our focus. Now, if you have any questions or you would like to connect with me, please do so. You can do so via my email address, which is mariska@journey2discover.com, or alternatively, you can link up with me via LinkedIn. Drop me a little message to say that you got hold of me here on USA Global TV and Radio, and I would love to start our conversation. And that is the end of this lesson for today. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Thank you and goodbye.